Hello, I am Lara. This is the Theory of Science interactive show about, this week, fractal patterns. It's not had as much take-up as the other ones. This is one of my favourite shows. We're actually going to make the thing. You come to a show about dolphins, you don't get to make a dolphin. We're going to make a fractal pattern, talk about what they are, talk about why they are, and then there's a story time about Jackson Pollock, which is one of my favourite story times because I love the story times where you're like, oh, I kind of heard that name, but I don't know anything about it. By the end, you will be experts in Pollocks. Right, let's make a fractal pattern. So, I said to bring some clear pieces of plastic and some paint. And you need to cut don't be embarrassed to ask an adult to do this, all right? Plastic is really sharp and spiky, but you need two pieces of plastic that are the same size, and we're going to put a blob of paint onto one of them and squish them together, and that will make a fractal pattern. I'll tell you what to do. But first of all, you just need two pieces of plastic the same size. It doesn't have to be clear plastic, actually. If you haven't got any clear plastic, you can probably do it on a plate, as long as your adult doesn't mind you putting paint onto a plate. I'm going to very quickly cut a piece here, because I want to do it twice. This is the last time I'm going to do this show. I'm kind of sad. This is a beautiful art meets science activity. I'm not going to tell you what fractal patterns are until we've actually made one. So sorry, the next 30 seconds of telly are just me loudly cutting out sharp bits of plastic. Doesn't really matter how big it is. It could be like the size of a postage stamp, but I suppose the bigger the better. Right. Here we go. I've got my two pieces of plastic, and now I'm going to get some paint. Less is more, okay? Don't put loads and loads and loads of paint on. Just, you don't want it to splodge out when you press the two bits of plastic together. Just a dot really will do. I'm going to use two colours because it's the third time I'm doing this show. I'm going to splash out, and I want mine to look best. It never does. There. Two little blobs of paint on a piece of plastic. Now, press the two pieces of plastic together. For you, it's easy if you do it on a table, okay? Put the paint blob one on a table, push another bit of plastic on top, and then without smearing it around, lift it straight off, okay? Like that. So push, and then lift, and then see what happens. You'll get a fractal. I'll see if I can do it to camera. Sometimes this makes a bit of a mess. So you push them together. That's nice, isn't it? That's nice straight away. It's a very satisfying blob of paint. But if you keep them still and you pull them apart, then hopefully you should see a fractal pattern emerge. Ready? Oops. Yeah, look at that. Oh, yes. Splendid. Oh yeah, that's a nice one. Okay, I'll show you. Come down here. Look, so this is what we call, I'll put it on here so you can see it better. This is a fractal pattern. A fractal pattern is a pattern where one big piece is the same as a little piece. It's a lot harder to lot easier to show you than it is to explain it. So can you see you've got like one long branch of paint here, but coming off that branch are slightly smaller branches, and coming off those branches are slightly smaller branches, and coming off those branches are slightly smaller branches, until you've got teeny tiny little branches that kind of look the same as the whole thing overall. So fractal patterns are everywhere in nature. It's not fern season, okay? But I had some ferns in my garden. I brought this to show you because fern leaves are a good example of fractal patterns. Fern leaves are one big stem with lots of little bits coming off the side, all right? It's not fern season. But if you look at one of the little bits coming off the side, that is actually one long stem with lots of little bits coming off the side. But if you look at those little bits, even that is kind of one long stem with little bits coming off the side. Now, I was quite embarrassed at the state of this, but then my 3-year-old pointed out that the top bit of the big leaf is crispy, but that the top bits of the little leaves are crispy as well, and even the top bits of the really tiny leaves are crispy. So now I feel like its crispiness kind of adds to its fractally ways, and I'm even happier about it. Rivers, very famous fractal patterns. So the thing with fractal patterns, it's the same process causing the pattern every time. So if you picture a river going in a straight line. A little bit of land gets eroded by water, and the more and more water that flows past, the more and more that land gets eroded until a river shoots off in that direction, and then that happens on that river, and that happens on that river. So it's the same process causing these little branches. Let's talk about ammonites, because I hadn't really thought about how fractal they are until I started doing this show. So apologies if you've heard me talk about ammonites before, because we just did a home ed lesson on them when we did the rock cycle, but this is the coolest fact. So an ammonite looks like this, right? Why does an ammonite look like this? It's because when little baby ammonite was born, it just had a tiny little shell, just one segment of shell. And as the ammonite grows, its shell grows with it. And what it does is it seals off a bit of its shell and just lives in the kind of outside shell, and the inside shell is left. And then as it grows bigger and bigger still, it seals off a bit more of its shell. Lives in this bit of the shell. So it's really weird that the ammonite's got this massive shell, but the living ammonite would only be in this bit of it, the very last segment, and all the rest is to store this very long tube where air or fluids are, and it can change density, and it helps the ammonite go up and down in the water. So what separates off these sections is called a septum, which is the same as a septum that separates off your nostrils, like that. And so inside the shell, the septum has to meet the shell wall, yeah? And it looks like from the outside that it just would meet it in a straight line, but it doesn't. It's absolutely incredible, the level of complexity of these patterns. Here we are. So we've talked about ammonites, how they're a family, but they're actually kind of almost different. They're quite different creatures, really, depending on which era you're talking about. So there's a kind of ammonite which lived before the Triassic period, really, really, really old ammonites, and they've got these suture lines on them. Now the suture lines are where the septum meets the shell, all right? So they wouldn't have been visible on the ammonite as it was living, but now you can just about see them breaking through. So that's how the septum met the shell, on the inside, this beautiful zigzaggy pattern. So that's a goniotype, that's an old ammonite. And then ammonites evolve and they get a little bit more complicated. So this is a ceratite. This is what the suture lines, the lines where the septum joins the shell, looked like on a ceratite. They're around in the Triassic period. And then you get ammonites, which have really evolved, and I'll show you what their suture lines look like, because they're gorgeous. Can you make that out? Look at those. So like I say, not visible when the animal was alive, but now you can make out how the septum met the shell inside. And look, here's an absolutely amazing photo from the Fossil Huntress website that she's got hold of. That's what it looked like inside. So that hole is the tube that I told you about, running all the way through the shell. But look, even the way that it joins, even the way the septum joins to the outside of the shell, is a fractal pattern. Isn't that gorgeous? I said that rivers were fractal patterns. So while I'm showing you photos, I'll show you this, which is the surface of Mars. See if you notice anything weird about the surface of Mars. Look! So this is a photo that the Viking 1 orbiter took of a certain part of Mars. You can see, look, it's fractal, isn't it? There's a river network there. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? So this is a piece of evidence, we've got lots now, that there once were rivers flowing on Mars. Amazing. Right. Lightning is a fractal pattern, so I've got my favourite jumper on. Why do fractals happen? Okay, why did, when you peeled the paint off, why did you get this funky looking pattern? It has to do with viscosity. If you brought a bottle of washing up liquid or a bottle of golden syrup with you, get it now. So viscous means basically how easily something flows. If something is very viscous, then it's very thick and gloopy and doesn't flow very easily. So golden syrup is very viscous, washing up liquid is also pretty viscous, water's a lot less viscous, it flows very easily, and air is super not viscous at all. Air's still a fluid in physics. Gases and liquids are fluids, so air's a fluid, but it's not very viscous. So, what is happening in here is that a viscous substance, the syrup, is sitting underneath the not very viscous substance, the air. This is the normal and natural state of things. This forms what we call a stable barrier. So, when you put your paint blob onto your plastic and you pushed, what was happening was, as you were pushing, a viscous thing, the paint, was pushing into a not very viscous thing, the air. Normal, standard, natural way of things, all good. Look, it's a stable boundary, it's a beautiful little hill shape. When you pulled, you were pulling air into the paint, so something not very viscous, the air, was being pulled into something very viscous, the paint, and that is a crazy scenario in nature. It's not supposed to happen, and when it does, you get this viscous fingering. That's what this is called. Wow, that's an even better fractal pattern than before. So examples of this, of not very viscous things pushing into viscous things, are, it turns out, yeah, everywhere, and make for some fascinating science. So again, if you've got your blob of golden syrup, let's talk about salt. So oceans, very salty. Oceans 300 million years ago, very, very salty. So when an ancient ocean dried up, then the water evaporated off and all the salt was left behind. And then little bits of rock, like sediment, we've talked about this in the rock cycle of your home ed, all little bits of sediment end up flowing over on top of the salt, stack up and up and up over like millions of years, and eventually they get compressed and form rock. But when salt gets compressed, it does something else, it does something weird, it deforms, it kind of flows around. So if you imagine that this air is the not very viscous rock above, the kind of porous rock, lots of little holes in it, and this syrup is the salt, the weight of all the air pushing on the syrup makes this kind of shape, and it's called a salt dome. So what that does is it ends up trapping oil and gas in the rock. Like, you can see it above ground, the earth just kind of slightly starts to bulge. And yet lots of air and lots of gas and oil, obviously that we burn for fuel, very useful, trapped inside. So in 1900, this chap who made bricks noticed this bulge that had gas coming out of it quite near him, and he was like, hey, you know, I'll start a company, I'll drill down, I'll get some of this gas to make my bricks with. Jobs are good. So he drilled, it's a long story, it's fascinating, he drilled down and down, like for ages, he kept hitting problems, so little things collapsed and stuff got broken, and he broke for Christmas and he came back again. He was 300 meters below the earth when suddenly, apparently, there was silence, and then an incredible roaring sound, and then this happened. It's called the Lucas Gusher. Apparently it blew for 9 days, 100,000 barrels of oil per day, splurging out of the ground. It was the biggest gusher the world had ever seen. Look at that, what beautiful photo. Apparently it's in a museum now. I can't remember where it is, but if you look up the Lucas Gusher, you'll find it. Yeah, humans didn't even really use oil on a big scale for energy until that point, and then people quickly realised that if you could find these salt domes, then you would find oil, you'd make a lot of money. Here's some salt domes that have erupted, not like a volcano erupts, but kind of slowly erupted in Canada. Look. See that? So NASA took these pictures. So these white circles are where salt has slowly been pushed up to the surface. That's like, I don't know, over 2 miles across. Notice that the circle of salt when it comes to the up to the earth is called a salt diaper, like a nappy, like a little salty nappy. I don't know why, but it pleased me. Right, and the last thing we need to talk about is the Crab Nebula. Oh, yeah, the Crab Nebula. Maybe also that song from Frozen, remind me. But yeah, the Crab Nebula. So what is a nebula? A nebula is like a cloud of dust and gas in space left over from when a star dies, all right? So stars, they're like burning fuel, they're giving off energy, eventually they run out of fuel, but a star is made of a lot of stuff. So when a star runs out of fuel, all the stuff that it's made of gets attracted sort of by gravity into the middle, and then when it's as squished as it can be, it kind of explodes. It's called a supernova. You probably know this. A star dying is called a supernova. Basically a star just like ejects its stuff and you get this brilliant flash. Now, the Crab Nebula, which we can observe in the sky now, is the remains of a star that died in 1054. And I love that we know that, because in China they were doing fantastic science and they were very observant and they were writing down everything they saw. So we've got loads of records of, in China in the year 1054, people looking into the sky and seeing what they called a guest star, this massive flash. You could see it during the day. They mentioned it in Japan, they mentioned it in what is now Turkey. Scientists and historians are frantically trying to find some reference to a European seeing it. No, we just weren't bothered. We didn't even notice. It was visible during the day for weeks, and not a single European person wrote anywhere like, oh, notice it. No, we were just all fighting each other. But anyway, the Crab Nebula, at its centre, has like the core of the dead star. It's called a pulsar, literally just a round piece of rock, which has as much stuff in it as the sun, but is the size of a small town. And it's spinning incredibly fast, and it's heating up all the gas around it. So when gas gets hot, it becomes not very dense, all right? So it's kind of like the air in our paint activity. But further out the Crab Nebula is quite a dense cloud of stuff from when the star exploded. So I'll just show you a picture of the Crab Nebula after all that talking, and see if you spot that something not very dense is pushing into something dense. Here. Isn't that great? You could definitely see some parallels, yeah, with our paint splodge. It's like the opposite of our paint splodge, because this is the dense stuff here, and this is the not very dense stuff here being thrown out by this pulsar, and it's pushing it. You see what I mean? That's good, isn't it? I know, right? Yeah, it's good. Yeah, now, I've just remembered that before the show, I put a plate of very, very thin water in my freezer because I wanted to see if it formed a fractal pattern. Because someone in the live show on Facebook the other day pointed out in the song Let It Go, which I will not sing, but even though it's in my head, in Frozen, they mention frozen fractals all around. And that's true, isn't it? Ice does form fractals. I might leg it downstairs after story time and get it. But it's time for story time about Jackson Pollock. You ready? I'm hoping that you don't know who he is, and that I'm going to tell you something new about him. New York, 1930. Jackson Pollock is... how's your knowledge? What's Jackson Pollock training to be? The answer is an artist. In 1943, his big moment came because very famous rich New Yorker Peggy Guggenheim said, hey, please can you paint me a new mural for my townhouse? Incidentally, Peggy Guggenheim, very famous because, very rich I should say, because she inherited her father's massive fortune when she was only 21, because her father died... How might a very, very rich American person die in the early 1900s? On the Titanic. Yeah. So, Peggy says to Jackson, look, I want you to do me this massive mural. The only thing she says is, it has to be bigger than 2 meters by 6 meters. She didn't mind what he did. She didn't mind how he did it. That's all she needed. She was like, you got this. I want you to imagine, please, what would you do if you're still a fairly young, unknown artist and an incredibly rich person says to you, you can paint me anything you want on a massive watch? Think about it. What would you do? What would you paint in oil on canvas? Legend has it that he had a terrible block and that he stared at the canvas for ages and ages and ages, and he missed the deadline, and then finally he had this breakthrough, and in one day he got it all done. Yay, that is not true. Why is it not interesting just to say that someone worked hard? He worked extremely hard, he had what he called grand fun, and eventually came up with, you ready? This. It's called Mural 1943. Well, Peggy was absolutely delighted. She threw a big party for what she called the new genius, Jackson Pollock, an extremely influential art critic. Said, I'm just going to do the accent. He's Clement Greenberg. I took one look at it and thought, now that's great art. And I knew Jackson was the greatest painter this country had produced. The Stanley Museum of Art called it one of the great... I don't know why they're English. one of the most influential pieces in the history of American painting. Now, unfortunately, Peggy did say in a letter to a friend, everyone likes it nearly, except Kenneth. This was a person who lived with her, which is rather bad luck on him, because he has to see it every single day when he comes in and when he goes out. I just love this idea of this poor housemate Kenneth every day being like, oh, I hate you, Jackson Pollock, it's disgusting. Anyway, Wikipedia describes mural as having the suggestion of several human figures walking, or possibly birds, or letters, or numbers. But it doesn't have to look like anything. That's kind of the point. Jackson was an expressionist, an abstract expressionist. So he didn't want to paint things that looked like things. He wanted to paint like emotions and feelings. So his most famous period is what's called the drip period. In these years, he'd put canvas on the floor and he'd move very quickly across it, dribbling very thinned out oil paint. And this became known as drip painting or action painting. There's great photos online. He apparently used the full force of his body to get the paint onto the floor in a kind of sort of beautiful dance. During the drip period, Life magazine ran a 4-page spread asking, is Jackson Pollock the greatest artist in the United States? Is he the greatest living painter in the United States? Which was made him very famous because everyone had an answer, but not everyone agreed. In 1999, scientist Richard Taylor and his team used computer analysis and discovered, he says, that Pollock paintings are fractal. So they did some brain scans and they showed that people's eyes and brains respond in the same way to Pollock's as to fractals. And they did experiments showing that people find mid-range fractal patterns particularly soothing. Richard says, because nature is full of fractals, our eyes and brains have evolved to process them easily. Apparently fractals put us in our comfort zone. He says his scans show looking at fractals reduces stress by 60%. Now, I have to admit here, everything I found out about fractals and Jackson Pollock together on the internet was written by or about Richard, except one blog post that turned out to be by a student. He'd just been to one of his lectures, so I'm not saying it's not true, I'm just saying I'd quite like to hear other scientists' opinions. But Discover magazine are very convincing. They say that Pollock clearly knew what he was after because the older he got, the more fractal his drip paintings became. So Blue Poles, which is one of his last paintings, is apparently the most fractal of all. It's an interesting idea, and it might help you to see art in a new way. The internet has a few things to say about Hokusai's painting, The Great Wave. What do you think? Can you see any fractals in there? On the top of the waves? We can't ask Pollock, sadly, because he died in 1956. But the National Gallery of Australia just had Blue Poles valued, and it's worth nearly £200 million. So you can see clearly someone's finding it. Very soothing indeed. The end. Looks like it's been a terrible crime, doesn't it? Never mind. Right, you lot. That is the end of the show on fractal patterns. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you spend a lot of time making the biggest, most extravagant and colourful fractal patterns that you can. I'll go on Facebook. That is the end of the show. But some people like to comment on Facebook to tell me that they're watching the show, so I'll have a look at your comments now. If you would like to support me, if you want to keep these going, because I do a show every week and I also do a home ed lesson every week during the week, then you can. You can go to my Ko-fi page and sign up to support me with, it starts at £5 a month. You can give me 12 if you like, but if you sign up with £5 a month, I will send you Theatre of Science magazine. It's a good deal to sign up, and then if you're enjoying it, then you can stay signed up. You can cancel at any time. So Theatre of Science magazine is a real labour of love. My husband graphically designs it and draws it, and I write it. It's a good time to sign, if you're watching live, it's a good time to sign up, because on Friday the new magazine comes out, which is on rainforests. But if you sign up now, you'll get the current magazine, which is still pirates. So the pirate magazine has a cartoon in it. I send you a free piece of string, so you can tie some knots, just like the pirates used to do. It's got some clothes dyeing activities, a comic about Are there any good pirates? Do you agree with how these people are saving the whales? It's got a quiz. Yeah, I'm super proud of Theatre Science Magazine. Thank you to everyone who has signed up. Yeah, it's up to you. I'll send you some rainbow glasses. You could get some badges as well. Yeah, like I say, I'm very excited about posting out all my welcome packs today. So, yes, very grateful. Very grateful to the supporters. Literally couldn't do it without you. Not like, couldn't do it without you. No, couldn't. It wouldn't work because I would be forced to get a job. Like, I don't know, in a school or something. Right. Let's have a look and see if any of you have left me any comments on the Facebook. And then, yeah, I might run downstairs to the freezer and see if my ice has formed a fractal pattern. But I mean, you've probably got a freezer at home and a plate, just like the thinnest layer of water. I basically put water on a plate and then drained it off again and then stuck it in the freezer. So you could do that too and see if it works for you. Oh, I've got a couple of comments. I know who this is going to be. It's... Oh, hiya, Christine. Oh, yes, a picture of a fractal pattern. Oh, that's effort to upload a photo. You guys, you're so good to me. Oh, Lay. Oh, Michelle's done purple. I like it. Hello, Shuki and Asa and Eunice. That's who I said when I thought I know who it's going to be. Oh, hello, Samuel. Hiya. What's happened to your profile photo now? Is that surrounded by flowers? All right. Yeah, it's terrible telly, but you can always sign off, can't you? I'm going to go and get my Frozen plate and see if it's worked. See if the lyrics from Frozen are scientifically accurate or not. Holding a tea plate. Oh, it's cold. I don't know. Maybe I used... Have a look. Maybe I used to... Got to put it in the light, I think. Oh yeah, when it's in the light, it's isofractal. We could just Google it, couldn't we? That's very pretty. Yeah. Oh yeah, it is, isn't it? Definitely. There you go. Oh, see, I'm so bad at marketing. If I'd put a big picture of Elsa on the poster and called this Make Your Own Frozen Fractals show, they would have been all over that, wouldn't they? Yeah. I will look it up on the internet, but I can definitely see some fractaliness going on there. Yeah, try that at home. You lot are good. You got loads of food colouring. Put some food colouring in it, will you? And send me some photos of your frozen fractals. I'd like to say it's snowing, that apparently that's just dust. Right. Okay, I've got to go because on my Facebook page at 11 is the renewable energy lesson this week that we're doing. Yeah, that's it really. And next week, this lesson will be on Earth Hour, because on Saturday it's Earth Hour when we're all supposed to turn off all our electricity for an hour at 8:30 on a Saturday night. But yeah, it's for good reason, so I'll be talking about why we should all do that. Okay, thank you so much for watching it all. I'll see you very soon for another Theatre Science show. Bye!